Good evening and welcome to Experience Bar, where we're turning video games into cocktails. My name is Jack and I'll be your bartender for this evening as I show you how to make a drink that can make any survivor feel, at least for a little while, like the biggest genius in the wasteland. Mentat and the Mentat cocktail from Fallout. Let's get started. So, to make the Mentat cocktail, you have to start off with Mentats. Obviously, those little red drugs that give you a bit of a boost in the brain department when you're hacking a computer or trying to convince someone you're a smarty. For this, you are going to need 2 or more mints, Altoid style mints. Do not get those hard candy shelled ones like Mentos. This process will not work for those. These are the ones that I'm using, little ones. Stuff like that. To those, you are going to add just a bunch of Peychaud's bitters. You can use other bitters if you really want to, but I do recommend using Peychaud's. It'll match up with the cocktail that we make up later. Just a bunch, cover them. Yeah, that'll do. To that, you are going to add a bit of red food dye. The Peychaud's doesn't quite have the oomph to it to turn them into that bright red that you can recognize from the Mentats in-game. So, I'm gonna add a couple of drops of that, making sure that it covers both of them pretty well. Yeah, that'll do. And give that a quick swish around to make sure they're covered, and pop that aside for 10 minutes. Do not do it for more than 10 minutes because the mints will begin to melt and you will end up with these kind of scraggly bits of mint rather than the whole solid Mentats that you want. In the meantime, while you're doing that, go and get like a bunch of baking soda ready because you're going to be straining those into this. The reason that we're using baking soda in particular is that, for one, in Fallout 4, one of the recipes for Mentats includes a Braxo cleaner, a common household cleaning agent that I think baking soda matches up quite well with. And 2, it has a fun effect when you combine it with a carbonated acidic drink. Speaking of which, we should make that now. This is the second half of our Mentat cocktail, the cocktail side of things. To make this, you are going to need your champagne glass. You are going to add 2 of your Mentats beforehand. Just drop them in. Chopsticks are very useful here. Drop them to the bottom. Pop those aside. And to that, you are going to add the first of our 3 ingredients. Sparkling white wine. Don't have to use canned, but if you do decide to use a canned one, I recommend using a Prosecco or a Cava. Don't get one of those like champagne ones. They're really not even close. And plus, Prosecco and Cava have the sweetness level required to match up with the rest of the ingredients. So pour that on in and you're gonna see the fun effect. Keep on pouring if you're feeling especially frisky. Try and keep the bubbles to the top as much as you can. But leave a little bit at the top because we're gonna add our other ingredients, which include 1 ounce of Famous Grouse whiskey. You can use another blended scotch if you really, really want to, but I definitely recommend using Famous Grouse because it matches up with our other ingredients a lot better. Pop that in. I'm not gonna use quite all of that because we won't have enough room for our next ingredient, which is the elderflower liqueur. Interestingly, whiskey and hubflower are ingredients for grape Mentats in Fallout 4, so we're taking a little bit of inspiration for it there. And one last thing, you're going to need an appropriate garnish, which we're just gonna add as a lemon twist. You don't have to add this. And now looking at it, I'm a little bit worried that's not gonna have enough space in it, so I'm just gonna... lovely. And pop that in. There you have it. That is the Mentat cocktail. Over time, this drink will develop. It will change from a kind of a pretty standard, almost French 75 style cocktail. And the mint will slowly dissolve from here. The Peychaud's bitters will get released from the drink, and it will develop as you sip it. So make sure you sip it slow. And speaking of which, let's get to sipping. Here's to all of our patrons who help make these drinks happen. In particular, today's bar regular, Epic Guthics. I don't know what a Guthix is or what makes them epic, but hey, you are one, so cheers. Let's just remove that garnish before it completely falls off. This is definitely a drink that has a lot going on with it. There's whiskey in there, there's elderflower liqueur in there, there's obviously the sparkling white wine and the bitters and the mint in there. It's definitely a drink that evolves as you drink it. Like I mentioned, the mints do slowly dissolve in the acidic solution. But I think the most interesting thing about this is the baking soda reaction there. Now, if you're worried about the baking soda affecting the flavor, it doesn't really, so long as you don't add too much. Just be very careful that you only cover it with a thin layer. You'll get a slightly less volatile reaction.
Oh my God!
But the drink will end up tasting a lot better. Interestingly, it actually reduces the amount of acidity in that sparkling white wine, which is why when you're using canned white wine like this, it ends up being a little bit more palatable, because this stuff can be very caustic if you're drinking it without anything to balance it out. But yeah, there you have it. That is the Mentat from Fallout and the Mentat cocktail. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been Jack Stone. This has been Experience Bar. You can keep up with us on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and Instagram and all of those places. We also have a Patreon set up, as you heard earlier. Our patrons regularly get shout outs. And they also get access to currently 2 additional recipe books that you can't get anywhere else, which cover Dungeons & Dragons and The Witcher. The Witcher one is a particular favorite of mine. We're creating new content every couple of weeks, so if you want to keep up with us, make sure you hit that bell icon. Hope to see you then, but until then, cheers.